Never stops. All right, well, thanks for coming today because, who wouldn't want to spend an afternoon talking about financials other than me and Susan and Brandy, the numbers nerds in the room? Yes, that's true. That is true. So I'm Stephanie Nielsen. I'm your operating partner and the nerd person that loves numbers. So when they asked me to teach a P&L class, I was like, yeah, that would be awesome. This is the first time that I've delivered this particular content. So here's what I would ask you at the end. I legitimately want feedback. I want to know how I could have simplified it, what we didn't talk about that you want to talk about, how we could tweak this class, because here's the goal of the class. The goal is to make financials super easy. Right? So at the end of this class, you'll be able to understand and read your P&L statement, identify profit leaks, set income and expense targets, build a simple financial plan, and leave with 3 immediate action steps. If we do that today, is that a successful use of your time? Okay, perfect. All right, so the first thing that I want to tell you is that revenue does not equal profit. What we hear a lot of times is somebody says, we're going to use this $415,000 example a lot today. I made $415,000 this year or last year. When an agent says that in our industry, what do they mean? Their gross commission income was $415,000. A few years ago, gosh, it's probably been maybe even 10 years ago now. That's what happens when you get old. Everything is just last week or a few years ago. So Gary Keller used to pull people up on stage for Mega Camp and Family Reunion based on their GCI. And then he started to kind of dig into that. What he realized is some of these people that were making $3 and $4 million a year in gross commission income were losing money in their business. Right? And so he said, okay, listen, nobody else gets on the stage until you submit your P&L, because I can't put you on stage and have you be the role model for the company when nobody got in this business to lose money. Nobody cares how much money you made. What we care about is how much you keep, right? So revenue does not equal profit. Your P&L is the scoreboard for your business. How many people currently have a P&L? Great, awesome. How many people update it monthly and close out the month so that at the end of the month you have a P&L that you can look at?
Really good for the first 3 months, and then I don't know what happens.
That's a good start, right? That's a quarter of the year. You're nailing it. So you're probably 25% ahead of most of the industry. So in the Market Center every month, right, you've heard Susan probably mention, I'll get back with you because I'm in transmittal, right? So Keller Williams International requires the Market Center to close out the month on the first business day of the month. She has until the 3rd business day of the month, but if she doesn't finish by the noon on the 2nd day, they're like, where are you? How come you haven't done it? Push the button, push the button, push the button, right? If you don't do it by the end of the 3rd day, then they send an assassin to kill you. It's like, it's that serious, right? When Katrina hit New Orleans, they had people that drove into New Orleans, grabbed the MCA computer, took it out, and everybody transmitted on time. And the reason it's so critical in our environment is because we profit share. So if market centers don't transmit on time, send the numbers to KW, they don't have time to calculate profit share and shoot it back out by the 20th of the month. So that's why it's like non-negotiable. What if we all made it that non-negotiable in our business? So when I'm working on my calendar as the operating partner, my job is to review the financials, to work with Susan to make sure that we transmit accurate numbers to KWRI. I look at the numbers. I'm sure Susan looks at them probably even more than I do. I look at them every week. And so that we're on track, because if I see something that's off, I don't want to wait till the end of the month when we're on a time crunch, because what happens when you're in a time crunch? You make mistakes. You also say, we'll fix that when? Later. When is later? Never. It's like, phrase I use is it's like taking a shovel full of sand and piling it on, right? The more months that go by, the more time that goes by, the more difficult it is to go back and fix anything. So your P&L is your scoreboard. What does a scoreboard illustrate? Who's winning? If you're winning or not. I know that our society has moved to a lot of scoreless games. I'll tell you how I feel about that. I feel like it's not a good idea. We're a competitive, in our being, we're comparative and competitive. If you don't want to compare your insides to someone else's outsides. Does everybody know what that means? That's an old bowling ball, right? Everybody you see on Facebook is living a perfect life. They have no challenges. They have no problems. Their kids are great. Their career's great. Their marriage is great. So we don't want to compare our insides when we're like, holy smoke, I'm a mess. Like, I have real problems and all of that. And everybody else is living a perfect life. We don't want to compare our insides to their outsides, because what's going on with them? The same thing that's going on with everybody else, right? It's called life. If you're breathing, you have some kind of challenge. It's just how it is, right? And so even though we don't want to compare our insides to their outsides, we do comparatively determine what is possible. You've heard the story of the 4-minute mile. Many, many people tried to break the 4-minute mile and could not do it. What was the guy's name? Roger Bannister? Was that his last name? Yeah, Roger somebody. Roger Bannister, I think, was the first person to break the 4-minute mile. And as soon as he did, a whole bunch of people did it. Why? Because he's proved. Because science said no one can break a 4-minute mile. Your heart will burst. You'll die. Not physically possible. Later, not at the time he did it, though. So that's an important distinction. He did not die doing that. So we compare. Why do we post a top-down report? Compare, right? Because if one can, anyone can. So when you look at the top-down report, I don't want you to look at it from a standpoint of, oh, everybody's doing that, and I'm doing this. I want you to look at it and say, if they did that, I can do that. In consulting, I would ask people, so your number, Sandy remembers this, right? So your number, 15 on the top-down report. Next month, where do you want to be? I want to be number 12. Okay, great. Well, Lisa's number 12, so I want you to call her when you leave here and tell her you're coming for her spot. Right? And that's the competitive piece. Although I would preface it by, far be it from me to ever start any drama, but call Lisa and tell her you're coming for her spot. So typically, when Sandy would call Lisa, Lisa would say, well, you can have it because I'm going to be number 10. Right? So then Sandy would, after being panicked about having to call Lisa and tell her she was coming for her spot, she'd call me and say, oh, Lisa says she didn't care. She's coming for 10. I'm like, okay, look, I'm looking on there who's 10. Then I text Lisa, hey, you need to tell Enio you're coming for a spot. Right? And so it would roll all the way up till we got to the number 1 agent who had no place else to go but number 1. Right? And for a long time, that was Chad Laracy, and he would just say, come on. Playroom, come on. So your P&L is your scoreboard, and it lets you know if you're winning. Business owners know their numbers. Numbers are the language of business, is what business owners talk about. It's what they are about. And so today, we're going to talk about goals. We're going to talk about tracking. We're going to talk about consistency of habits. Does anybody see the movie Hitch? Okay. Do you remember when Hitch was teaching his client how to dance? Do you remember that part? Because his client was trying to impress this very, very wealthy woman, and when he demonstrated his dance moves for Will Smith, he said, don't ever do that again. But what he said is, this is where we live, right? In the models, this is where we live. Until you master this, no freestyling. No, woo! Right? Just stick with what we know. Stick with what we know. Mindset is a huge, huge piece of everything. How many people are excited about creating a P&L? Okay. All right, most of you are. Most of you are seeing this as a, Susan, can you give us some air? She didn't hear me. Oh, well, not up here, it's not. I'll trade places with you. Susan, can you give us some air? Just a little air? Thank you. So I want you to kind of expand your mindset, be willing to expand your mindset, right? Reframe it and think about it differently. When my grandson, who's now 14, was 2, maybe, we went to pick up a prescription for me. And so we're at the drive-through pharmacy thing, and Tristan and I are talking, and the pharmacist comes to the window, and he said, "Hey, what's your name?" And I said, "Stephanie Nielsen." And Tristan said, "That's not your name." And the pharmacist kind of like looks up, and I said, "It's not. What's my name?" He said, "Your name is Mimi." Right? That was his perspective. That's how he saw it. Was he wrong? No, my name is Mimi. As far as he's concerned, that was the only name I had. And so as we look through financials, I want you to think about it differently. This can be true, and that can be true. So as we're looking at different things. Oops, where's my little clicker? All right, so let's talk about the details of a P&L. So there are 5 basic pieces of the P&L. So your income is your gross commission income. Every time you have a closing, that's revenue in. When you have a referral fee, that's income in. So you're going to categorize all of the revenue that comes into your real estate business under income. Cost of sales. This is a little bit for debate, and I'll tell you that, but I want to also tell you what we're going to talk about for it just today, right? So cost of sales is dependent on a transaction. Cost of goods sold is only if you have a closing. Some people try to put crazy things in there. Staging. Some people try to put staging in cost of goods sold. It's not. You're paying for the staging regardless of whether the property closes or not. What's an example of something that would be a cost of sale in real estate? FMLS, your cap, royalty, right? You only pay that if the transaction closes. Some people use transaction coordinators that they only pay if the transaction closes, and transaction coordination is a debatable component whether that would go under cost of goods sold or go under administrative expenses. And here's why I say that. The bigger you get, you're probably eventually going to hire someone that does your transaction management. So if you're paying them a salary, it's definitely not a cost of sale because you're paying that regardless. So for our examples today and our studies, we're going to look at cost of sales as cap, royalty, a referral fee you pay out is a cost of goods sold, a split that you pay to a team member, a buyer's agent or a listing specialist, that would be cost of goods sold. It only happens and it's directly related to the transaction. Your gross profit. So your gross profit is income minus cost of goods sold, and that's your 1099 income. Right? So when you get your 1099 from this office, it does not include, or the FMLS fees have been deducted. Right? So you need to get your FMLS report because that's an expense of your business, and you need to make sure that you're deducting that. Your operating expenses. What are the expenses that go into your business to keep it running, to keep it moving? Everything else. Marketing, occupancy, lead generation. Yes. And then there's a lot of debate about, for example, some people say that, I keep thinking that's my phone. Is that me? Nope, I'm on silent. Okay. Whoever's phone it is, if you'll turn your phones to admit no noise. Oh, gotcha. Can you do the silent thing? All right, let's see. Where's your silent one? I can't see.
What do you want?
I see by the violent.
There's settings.
Well, I'm look. It may just be because I can't.
Sound. Here, we turn the sound down.
Yeah, we can turn the sound down, or that might be silent. I can't tell if it, does that have a, yeah, that has a little X in
Yeah,
the
it's
bottom
okay.
corner. I just can't see. Okay. All right. Oops, now I forgot what I was talking about. P&Ls, operating expense. Oh, nope, we passed that. We were in operating expenses. We were talking about client gifts. That's where I was going with this. So some people say client gifts are lead generation. It is marketing, right? Client gifts are not lead generation. It's a marketing expense. So, and why is it important which category you put it in? Well, that's a tax tip, right? So if you do a client gift, you're limited to $25 that you can deduct with the IRS. If it's marketing, meaning it has your name on it in some capacity, then there's no limit on what you can give them. But the reason that it's important when you log it on your P&L correctly is because we're going to monitor the percentages that you should be spending in different areas. So if you log it to lead gen and it's not lead gen, your lead gen budget is, who knows what your lead gen budget is? It's a good thing Misty's not here because she knows all these ratios. You know, she won a contest at KWRI with like, I don't know, 100 and something people in the room, and she nailed it for all the MREA things. So it's 10% for lead generation that you should be spending. So, and then business profit. So business profit is all of the math that results from these things. So income minus cost of goods sold is your gross profit. Minus your operating expense is your net business profit. Now, what did we not take out of business profit? What did we not account for in that? Taxes. Yeah. So your taxes would be an expense outside of that. If you've incorporated or you're an LLC, your LLC or corporation pays very minimal taxes because it passes through to you personally. So taxes are not included in your business profit because it's a personal expense. So as you look at your business profit, you want to leave a certain percentage of the profit in the business as seed money to keep it going and keep expanding, and then you want to take a percentage of it to yourself, for yourself personally. So a good rule of thumb is if you leave 30% in the business for growth and expansion, reserves, all of that, you take this of the business profit, you take 70% out of that. 30% of the 70%, right, would be for taxes. You put that in a separate account, a tax account, and then 40% is what you would use to sustain your lifestyle. Bob Kalinske is coming to teach a class called Run Your Business Like a Business. Do we know right off the top of our head when that is? April 23rd. Yeah. Yeah, I could have made the flyer, still wouldn't have remembered. For those of you who don't know who Bob Kalinske is, he is one of our founding owners of the Southeast region. He has an MBA in business, brilliant guy, great command in a class, and I would definitely suggest that you come and check that out. Now here's what I will tell you about his class. One of the things he's going to ask you is if you have a P&L. So before you come to the class on April 23rd, get your P&L together so that you can say, yes, you have one. And he's going to give you the different components of running your business like a business, and it'll be a high-level class, and then we'll do drop-down supporting classes around that to help you get it all together.
Do you think that's like he used to teach, or is it?
It is. Well, every class he taught is different because he's Bob, and he freestyles. He freestyles with systems because he's mastered the basic steps, and then he has the ability to freestyle. So, all right. So here are some MREA targeted benchmarks. So your lead generation should be 10% of your gross commission income. If you know what your GCI was from last year, I want you to calculate what 10% would be. If you bought leads, if you did a client event, anything you did to attract business. Yes. Does everybody have their number? Did you spend 10% of your GCI last year in lead gen? See, Enio's shaking his head no. That's very common. Agents tend to often underspend in lead gen and overspend in other areas. Why would it be important to spend 10% of your income in GCI? I mean, 10% of your GCI in lead gen? To keep the business coming, absolutely. That's the feed and seed money for your business in the future. So if you're underfunding your lead gen, you're underfunding your business. And the future of your business is not going to grow. You have to feed it and water it and promote it. Your total operating expenses should be no more than 30% of your gross commission income. And by the way, lead generation is part of that, of operating expenses. And then your target profit is 40%. So Gary has the 30-30-40 rule. Right? You'll hear him throw that out all the time. 30% cost of goods sold, 30% operating expenses, and 40% profitability. Now, of our MREA teams, the really large MREA teams, they're not hitting the 30-30-40 model. So to be in Gary's group, if you're an individual agent, it's $500,000 in gross commission income to be in Gary's group, and which means that Gary interacts and coaches personally that group. For teams, it's $1.5 million in GCI to be in Gary's group, and then they created another larger group, and I'm not sure what the GCI is on that one, 3.5 maybe? GCI and above is they broke them out again. Why do you think they broke out 1.5 million and 3.5 million? What do you think the difference is in those two groups? Well, they're making more money because that's the income, yeah. Why would they split out those groups? FYI, it's the same reason we do MREA masterminds and Capper masterminds separately. It's because the conversation's different. People that are at 3.5 million GCI have different questions, different concerns, different needs than somebody who's at 1.5 million. The reason the individual agent is $500,000 in GCI to meet with Gary is because people at that level have it's a different conversation than if you did 50,000 in GCI last year, right? So they want the conversations in the room. It's the same reason we break our mastermind groups out. When we first started Keller Williams, Teresa Wolf, Bob's wife, always hosted coordinated our Capper masterminds. And actually, I guess it was the mega agent masterminds, which was $6 million and above in commission 23 years ago. And what mastermind did everybody in the office want to be in? The mega agent mastermind, right? And Teresa was brilliant because she would say, we would be so excited to have you join us just as soon as you hit 6 million. Right? So it wasn't like it was in the kindest way, but she held the standard. Because if we had somebody brand new in the room with $6 million producers 23 years ago, they have different questions. We took some guests to Mega Camp one year that were not at mega agent level production. And we did ahas at dinner that night, and their aha was there was too much conversation about teams. That was valid from where they sat because they weren't going to they didn't need leverage. They were doing, 6 transactions a year. They could do that themselves without having a team. So this profit target, if you want to get Gary riled up, ask him about the profit margin of his high groups, because most of them are not hitting that, are not hitting 40%. And he's constantly coaching to that. Where they're off is on cost of goods sold. So if you're thinking about creating a team, the original thing that was taught was team members split 50-50 on their transactions, okay? What we know now is that's not a sustainable model. And here's why it's not sustainable. Because there's no way you'll ever fit into a 30% cost of goods sold when you're sharing commissions 50-50. What are the responsibilities and the expenses of the team that the team covers versus an agent on their own? Yeah, so Lisa, you're on a team, right? So what are some of the things your team provides?
Contract to close,
Mm-hmm.
signs,
Mm-hmm.
boxes, business cards, marketing, events. They pay for everything. The rent on our office.
So anybody heard of Mark Spain? So his team, if you're a listing agent on his team, you get 10%.
Wow.
That's your split. But what you do for the 10% is you go on the listing appointment, you secure the listing, and you negotiate the contract and the amendment to address concerns. That's all you do. But you get 10%. But how many lists, if that's all you did,
Get a bunch of listings.
if that's all you did all day long, how many listing appointments could you go on in a day? 4 or 5. Yeah. So if you think about that, if you have because they generate the leads, so you're not spending that time lead generating, you're just taking the lead and going, and you don't even have to convert the lead. You're just going on the appointment, right? So as you're thinking of your future and building a team, or you're thinking about, if some of you may be thinking about joining a team, right? Think about the bigger picture. Gary Keller says he always partners on almost every adventure he has. He has a partner. So some people will think, I don't want to partner because, I'm going to take the money and split it in half. But if you can I always say 1 + 1 has to equal 3 or more. Yes. So, we have multiple partners in the market center, investors in the market center. We decided to combine, at one time, the Woodstock office and the Canton office were 2 separate market centers. And in January 1st of 2012, we combined the 2 offices, which means that there were 2, Alan and I were the only common investor between the 2. So that meant that everybody's ownership shares were cut in half. So if you had 5%, you have 2.5. If you had 10, you have 5, right? And so for what felt initially like a takeaway, would you agree it's the best thing we ever did? Right? Everybody, even though they had a smaller piece of the pie, they ended up with a much more pie in the end, right? The pie itself got bigger. Yep. So again, back to your name is Mimi, right? Shifting your perspective to see things a little bit different. I would say one of the greatest mistakes I've witnessed over the years with people starting a team is that they overpay on the splits initially. Because if I partner with Ursula and I say you're gonna be a buyer's agent on my team and it's gonna be 50-50, and then 2 years in I go back and say, you know what, that really wasn't a win. I'm gonna need to cut you back to like a 35%. How does she feel about that? Not good. It's a takeaway, right? So getting the model right, and the great news is this is where we live, right? We already have models and systems. Make sure you master that, and then you can say, but I think I'm going to do this. It's possible that you're way smarter than Gary Keller. Just don't know it yet, yeah. And, with that said, Gary has raised some people who have gone on to do some pretty incredible things, right? Ben Kinney came to Keller Williams as a brand new agent. Yeah, he owns multiple businesses, Place being one of the businesses. Remine, he just bought Remine. Yes, and that's just like a drop in the bucket of the number of businesses that he owns. But Place, as a organization, 2 years ago did more volume than all of Remax. And it's under the Keller, Ben Kinney is under the Keller Williams umbrella. So one of my favorite things about Gary is he doesn't think he's the smartest person in the room. What he does think is he's the best catalyst to bring all the perspectives together and move them forward. And I would agree that he is pretty stinking good at that. So one of the things that oops, that's out of order. All right, we'll go back to that. So one of the things that I have discovered is that sometimes agents think they need to sell more houses in order to make more money. Is that true? Maybe. Maybe. And maybe it's just a math problem. So what I want to look at today is how do we figure out how many transactions you want to do in order to sustain your lifestyle, and then let's back that up, right, with the activities you need to do. Can you see this? Okay. So this is the economic model for Keller Williams. And I have this in an Excel spreadsheet. In the Excel spreadsheet, there are certain things that can be changed that are, and on the Excel spreadsheet, they're blue, right? So you can change your average sales price. You can change your average commission. You can change the amount of money you want to net, and you can change these assumptions, okay? So I did this on $150,000 net income. I'll send this Excel spreadsheet to you, and you can play around with it and see what differences it makes. So if you wanted to net $150,000 in income, I'm assuming, right, at $258, you're an individual agent. So your cost of goods sold, which at the model is 30%, right? But if you're an individual agent, what are you not paying? Yeah, buyer's agents, listing specialists, right, because you're doing the transactions yourself. So your cost of goods sold will be considerably less than someone who is paying that out. So cost of goods sold at 12%, your expenses at the model of 30%, which gives you 42% total expenses. In order to achieve this, if you had 60% of your business coming from listings, you would need to go on, we're going to round it up and call it 22 listing appointments, because I would hate for you to get up at the very end of one listing appointment and say, no, I only need 21.99, so we'll finish you next year. All right, so this is for the year. So 21.99, 22 listing appointments a year. If you converted 70% of those, why would you not convert 90 or 100? What would cause you to not take a listing? Overpriced, crazy seller, the house, right? You're like, nobody's going to sell this, right? Although at a price, you can sell anything, right? So unreasonable seller, crazy seller, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And sometimes you go on a listing appointment and you educate them and they say, maybe our best bet is to stay here right now, right? So if you are talking to someone and they say, I get 100% of the listing appointments I go on, here's what I'm going to tell you. You aren't going on enough listing appointments, right? If you're getting 100%, you're not going on them. Now, your conversion rate might be higher than 70. You might have a scenario where you work primarily referral business. Guess what? People still overpriced, people are still crazy, and sometimes it's still best for them to stay. So if you go on 1 or 2 for the whole year, you might be at 100%. Go on more. So now it is cold season, thank you. Just bump it up like maybe 1 degree. I don't know how far you bumped it down, but
It wasn't on at all, and it's on 72 now.
I would put it on maybe 74. Yeah. All right, so then of the 22 listing appointments you go on, you're going to need to take just over 15 listings for the year. Does everybody feel okay with that? 15 listings a year? That's 1.28 a month. Some months you're going to take 2, some months you're going to take 1. If 80% of those sold, why don't all listings sell? Sometimes they terminate, sometimes they change their minds, sometimes the market shifts and what was a great price isn't. Sometimes you have no idea what the price should be and so you just throw something out there, right? So if 80% of them close, you would close 12.32. If your average sales price was $450, which by the way in Cherokee County it's like $467, that would give you $5.5 million in seller volume. Why did I put a 2.8% commission when we all say our average commission is, what do we all say our average commission is, even though commissions are 100% negotiable, but since we're in the same company, right, we can talk about commissions. We all say, oh, no, I charge 3% on every commission. Do you ever pay a referral fee? Yeah, that drops your commission rate down because you may have collected 3%, but then you paid a portion of it out. So that's why if you add your commission at the end of the year and figure out what your average commission rate is. Does everybody know that you have vital signs as an agent? That Keller Williams tracks all this for you? You know that? There's a report that you can pull, and it's multi-year. So we have multi-year trends for the Market Center, and each agent in our company has multi-year trends for their business. So if you've been here more than 1 year, Keller Williams tracks your business, and you can see how you performed year over year by the month in a gazillion different categories. So it's like a little cheat sheet. My coach always says, I don't know of another company that cares enough about their agents to track their numbers. There's not another company that tracks numbers for agents and puts them in a format like that. It is on mykw.kw.com in reports, Susan. Is that where?
It is, but they have moved it to command.
Okay, so now it's in command. Well, I get to command by going to mykw.kw.com. But I'm sure there's an easier way, but.
We can find the instructions on how to do it and send it.
Okay, will you make a note of that, please? You probably don't need to because you probably remember.
We'll send it out and we'll also put it on our resource page.
Perfect.
It's easy to forget if you don't look at it every day. There's a few little places you have to go.
Okay. Let me say this about it. Some of you are going to get that report and you're going to say, this isn't right. And guess what? It may not be. Guess why it might not be right? Input in, input out. If you put something under contract on February 28th and you don't turn it in till March 5th, guess when it shows up? March 5th, because KW loves you and cares about you and they're super smart, but they are not smart enough to know what's in the back seat of your car. That's an old person reference because you don't put it in your back seat of your car anymore. It's on your computer, but whatever. So that's why sometimes it may not be. That's the other reason that we are saying to you, please turn your things in a timely manner. Please make sure if it closed in February that you're bringing it to the office for Brandy to process in the month it's in. Because as you become and think like a CEO, it's important that your business is structured in that piece. Now, granted, you still need to eat again next month, so that's okay too. But as you're looking at trends in your business, you'll see those trends show up. The brain loves patterns, and we fall into patterns. So you probably already know of, if you've been in this multiple years, you probably know a time period of the year where your business is more active. And it won't be the same as somebody else's. My business always spiked in September through December. That was my busiest time.
What if you're paying a team member a percentage of the listing commission for doing work on that, like let's say 20%? Does that lower your number up there?
It would go to cost of goods sold. Oh, you're talking about in the economic model?
Yeah.
So you would factor that into this assumption. Cost of goods sold. So your cost of goods sold percentage may be higher. So you would look back at previous years. You wouldn't factor it in up here. You would factor it in here. The commission wouldn't change because you're still collecting the same amount of commission, but you're just paying it out in this category. Yep. So on the buyer side, right, because we did 60-40, what's a healthy business? So 50-50, Gary likes 60-40 on the listings because heavier on the listing side gives you more time and control of your money, more control of your time and your money. Easy for me to say. If you get more than 60% on the seller side, he would tell you you're leaving money on the table. We're entering a different market, which is super exciting because the market that we were in where things sold in like 26 seconds, you had no time to attract buyers. Right? So the model is you take a listing, you put a sign out. You should get 2 buyers from each listing you have. So the more listings you have, it feeds this side. When the house went under contract before you could even put the sign up, you had no time. You had no time to market it. You had no time for the sign to be out. So you couldn't pick up buyers on the other side. And it made our businesses kind of wonky. So now that we're getting back to, a whole 4 months of inventory, I know some of you feel like that's a lot. That is not a lot. 4 years of inventory, that's a lot. At 40%, right, you would need to have 16 buyer listing appointments. And I want you to think about that in that way. Buyer consultation, a buyer listing appointment. You're going to be listing the buyer. You're not going to work with buyers. We list sellers and we list buyers. And one of the greatest gifts that this lawsuit gave us is that now we have to list buyers. Because before you can show them anything, you have to get the buyer's agency agreement signed, which means you should have a consultation with them. Right? So 16 buyer listing appointments, 80% of those you'll sign. Can we agree that it's easier to get a buyer to sign an agreement than it is to get a seller to sign an agreement? Right? Because they're like, yeah, I'll sign it, whatever, let's just go see some houses. So what would be a reason you would not list a buyer? Not pre-approved, not qualified. Crazy. Yeah. What? I said that wipes out 85%. Yeah. So yeah, well, it only wipes out 20% in this instance, right? You have a buyer who says, listen, I would like to buy a house. I would like it to be give me a neighborhood. In Deer Run, South on Main, right? Which is a fabulous neighborhood, by the way. So I want to be in South on Main. If anything comes up in South on Main, 250 or under, call me. And y'all may or may not know this about me. I have a sarcastic streak. So when I would have buyers that would do that, I would always kind of laugh and say, I will call you to tell you I just bought it. Yeah. And so that's not realistic, right? That ain't going to happen. Nothing in South on Main's. Now, I shouldn't say never say never, because, if we have another 2007 to 2011, anything could happen. But we aren't anticipating that, right? So that may be a reason that you wouldn't list them, is what they're asking for. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So then you would take 12.63, so 13 buyers listed for the year. You feel okay about that? Just a little over one a month, right? 65% of those will actually convert to a closing. Why do fewer buyers convert to a closing than sellers? Circumstances change. You have to find the house they're looking for. And it's, inventory. So it's you looking for what they're looking for versus if you take a listing, you've got I don't even know how many agents in Metro Atlanta anymore. Used to be 23,000. It's probably more like 75,000 now. Everybody else is looking at your house versus you going to look at everybody else's house. So if only 65% of them convert, that's a little over 8 sold. Average sales price $450, $3.6 million in volume, 2.8% commission. And so that would give you GCI of $258,600. Your expenses would be $108,600, and that would net you $150,000. Does anybody have any kind of, as Misty says, does anybody feel any kind of way about the $108,000 in expenses? Does it make you swallow hard? Does it make you be like, hey, I'm not spending $108,000? So yeah, cost of goods sold. Yeah, adjusting your numbers, right? But if you could spend 108,000 to make 150,000, does that sound like something you would do? Yeah. I'll give any of you 150,000 or 108,000 if you give me 150,000. Yeah, you'll win on that every time, right? There's more on there. Now, can you tweak your expenses? Sure. Can you tweak them in an unhealthy way? Yes. You could underfund your lead gen, right? So you want to do that. So this is a great exercise. Brandy and Susan can go through this with you. I can go through it with you. Misty can go through it with you. The key component is, and I think we have the sheet locked down, Susan. Susan loves to change my formulas. I love Excel. I'll be like, wait, what happened to the formula there? She's like, ah. So I think we have the formulas locked down, but if it's blue, you can change it, and it changes the numbers, right? The only way these change is by these assumptions, and you want to keep it in model. These change, it'll change the number of transactions that you do.
You're going to share this with us, right, Stephanie?
Yes, it should be on. It should be in a lot of different places. This is a very old economic model, but yes, I will absolutely share it with you again. All right. So let's look at so let's do this real quick. How much money do you want to spend, do you want to make in a year? Net. And this is net before taxes, right? So you're going to pay your taxes out of that. Does everybody have a number? How many people's number is 100,000? No? Okay. Everybody that gets into the real estate business wants to make 100,000. You could interview 200 people, and 198 of them would say, what do you want to make in your first year? 100,000. And it's been that way for 30 years. Numbers never changed. Okay. All right, you have a sample P&L in front of you. The busy but broke agent. Busy but broke. Taylor Smith. Should have made it Taylor Swift. All right, so Taylor did 36 transactions, average sales price of $420,000, average commission 2.7, which gave a volume of 15 million, right? So the two, front and back. It says case study. Do you have it? Do you have the right one? Did I give Sean the wrong stack of papers? I may have given Sean the wrong stack of papers. Hold on. Does it start out with that? Oh, yeah, that is the wrong one. Stand by. Yeah, I gave him the wrong one. So let's see. This, well, it's a different one. The font is a little bit bigger. That one, y'all hold on to that one. We're coming to that in a minute. Let's see. But I wonder where the other. Well, that's what I was just looking for. I don't know what happened to my. Oh, yeah, there they are. Okay, I need one. Okay. How many more do we need? Oh, do you not have? Oh, I just gave everybody the wrong one. That's okay. You're not supposed to have it yet. Now, so yeah, now they have the Does anybody have more? Okay, let's see. See, I think I have one more. What did I just do with the one that was in my hand? Everybody has one? Okay. All right, awesome. Okay, so this is a sample for the P&L, right? So you have the gross commission income is 408,250, referral income 6,500, so total income 414,740. And then cost of goods sold, team splits, referral fees paid. So the adjusted gross income is 310,740. Everybody with me? Okay, then you have lead gen. So this is a breakdown of the lead gen activities that they did, totaling 68,100. So based on what we've talked about so far, what would you say about the lead gen percentages? It's too much. How much is it and how much should it be? Well, first of all, let's start with this. What percentage should it be? 10%. Good job, Brandy. And how much is it? 10% of the GCI is what it should be. Yes, it should, yeah. Yep. Who has a calculator? 16.4, yes. If only we had a calculator in our pockets. It was back to my math teacher who said, you have to learn to do this because you're not going to have a calculator everywhere you go. Yes, I do. She didn't know. All right, so who knows what percentage it is? If you divide the actual lead gen spend of 68,100 into the total GCI. Very good, Ann. 16.4%, and it should be 10%. So if you look at those items, right, where might they adjust? That's kind of a trick question, right? Because what you would have to do to determine where you would make a cut is you would have to determine your return on investment for each item, right? So Gary says at least for every dollar you spend, you should get at least a $3 to $4 return. Where are some places, looking at this specific category, where is a place that agents spend money and don't get at least a 3 to 1 return? And yet some agents crush it with Zillow. What's the key if you're going to buy leads? What's the key to buying leads? You have to work them. So 2 to 4% close rate on internet leads is considered crushing it in the industry. Okay? The conversion time frame is 15 to 18 months. So what kind of personality would like to work internet leads? A high D personality? A high D personality. What makes a high D personality ideal for internet leads?
Because they're constantly striving to hit that goal to achieve it.
They're results oriented, so they're just like, okay, I got to call X number of people, I'm just going to do it. What else about their personality makes them prime for this? Sean, you know, because we just had this conversation yesterday. They don't care about rejection. They don't see rejection as anything personal. They're not, a high D is not relationship oriented, they're task oriented. So if the person says no, they don't care. If you have a high I and somebody is mean to them or tells them no, then you got to factor in the time frame for 15 minutes for them to cry about it, right? And people are typically two types of personality together, right? So like I'm a DI. So even though D is my primary, my I is also fairly there. So I'm results oriented, but I also care about relationships. So for me, I don't have the patience. Like, I'm not a great lead generation type person. Even my D says, listen, if you want to buy something, we'll go do it. But if we're going to be 18 months, there's got to be a good reason for me to call you back 18 months, on an ongoing thing. When I was a team leader, people used to always say, what's your follow-up plan? And I was like, close them when they're in front of me, because if they walk out the door, I'm probably not going to call back. Not because I didn't want them to be part of my world. They just walk out the door and I'm like, okay, and then somebody else is coming in and we're, moving forward. So if I recruited you in, congratulations on saying yes when you came in. So you would want to factor in return on investment, right? Client events, you want to really, really look at that and really, really measure it. What are the results? How many referrals did you get from the client events? Figuring out how to quantify it to make sure that you're getting a return on event, because client events can be expensive to produce. They're very time consuming to produce. And what personality would gravitate toward a client event? A high I and a high S, right? Those are the two relationships. So D and C are task oriented, and I and S are relationship oriented. So that is a good way. Now, a high D or a high C probably would not work the client event, not like an I and an S. The I and the S is going to connect and, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you came. We appreciate you so much. We're like, the D is going to be like, all right, is it over yet?
Yeah, I got
And the C is going to be like, is everything where it needs to be?
I'm a high D, but I'm more the I. Oh God, it's so good to see you. But now, okay, let's get on with it.
And you can shift. Know that with personalities, right, we all have all four. I say you could show me the highest S in the whole world, and if somebody messes with their kid, you're going to see a D, right? They're coming at you, right? So we all have all of the traits, and we can bring them up whenever we need them. However, if you live in a trait that is not your natural style, it will drain your battery. So if you take a high C or a high D and you put them in a highly social environment, at the end of the event, they're going to say, I'm just going to go home. Everybody's going to be like, let's go to dinner afterwards. And they're going to be like, pass. Hard pass, right? I just need to not talk to anybody for a minute. Whereas a high I is going to be like, yes, let's go. Let's keep going. Let's go sing karaoke in the bar. Yeah. Yeah. Maria, and who else went with you? Yeah, Tina and Maria and Angel and Joe. Yeah, yep. So, all right, so really figuring out your return on investment, and in this P&L, in order to maximize profitability, right, you're going to need to trim back lead generation or increase GCI. Alan and I have had this argument as long as we've been married, right? He would say, we got to spend less. I said, let's just make more. I don't want to spend less. Let's make more, right? So figuring it out, but you can't spend it till you make it.
So I have a question. When you're trying to go through, I do a spreadsheet every year with all my categories, expenses, but I've never really done an actual P&L. So that's what I want to do. But so how do you determine? Like a client event example. I have 2 client events that I do every year, and then I add some occasionally.
Okay.
I don't really know what kind of business I'm getting from those. I do get referrals from those people that come, but I haven't really tracked it. So it's hard to kind of know, because sometimes it's not right there in front of your face. It's like down the road. Like, I mail out a newsletter that my clients love. I'm also doing a digital one now, and I'm considering getting rid of the mail out one because it costs money. And
So here's what I would say. If it's not a trackable return on investment, it might be marketing versus lead gen.
well, it probably is marketing then.
Yeah.
Okay, so you add that in.
So if you're doing like a farming neighborhood, right, and you're mailing out flyers, but there's no it is a source of lead gen, right? Because you're doing it with the anticipation of getting business. But is it active, passive? Are you doing it to keep your name out, which is client events you do often with your clients, right? You're doing that to stay,
In front of their face.
yes, yeah, top of mind with them. So if you can't quantify it and track it, it might be marketing versus lead gen.
So you said marketing is visibility, lead gen is trackable numbers.
Yeah, marketing is brand recognition, and lead gen is actually going after business.
So I have an event, a client comes, and 4 months down the road, they send me a referral.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's because they sent it to me because they love me, or because they reacquainted themselves with me at my event,
Correct.
or what it was for, why did
Right.
they do that?
Right.
So I
So
would count that as,
I would consider moving your client event to marketing at that juncture, or track it, right? So Susie comes to your client events every single year, and every single year she sends you X number of referrals. So it's probably because that's how you're touching her. Yeah. So Gene Rivers, which most of you have probably seen, his team Ring the Rivers, I thought did something brilliant with their client touches. And I don't want to get too far into this because that's a different class. But they sent out a monthly offer to their entire database, which is massive. So they would coordinate with a local, for example, a local florist in the spring. And so they would send out an email to all of their database and say, this month's special or offering or whatever from the Ring the Rivers team is a spring bouquet. Email us for your certificate to go to this florist and get a free spring bouquet. So they touched, I'm gonna make up numbers, they touched 5,000 people with this offer. They said the number of people that actually emailed and said, can I have the certificate? Minuscule. But they get credit for offering it to 5,000 people. So instead of buying pies for everybody in your database, right, maybe you figure out who wants one. So I heard this from Gene a gazillion years ago, right? And back when Drew and Sean were in high school, they worked at Outback. And the manager, we ate there a lot too because the market was busy. So the manager came to us one day and she said, hey, listen, corporate sent me this like stack, and I'm talking about a stack of cards for free bloomin' onions. She said, if I give these to you, will you help me get them out? So I was like, yeah, that'll be great. So I said to Alan, we'll do a thing to our database. It was January, right? So we sent out the thing like the Ring the Rivers, sent it out to our entire database. 3 people wanted those cards. But we got a number of emails back where people said, oh, thank you so much for that. You know, we're on a new eating plan, or hope you had it, you know, like don't respond at all. They just, I mean, they responded, but don't say why they didn't want it. They just didn't want it, right? Only 3 people. So then I was like, what am I going to do with these hundreds of cards? Like, you know, nobody wants them. But we got credit for sending it out. So that would be a good way to get your, because as we know, you don't really care how many people come to your client event. What you care about is that you offered it to a lot of people. The fewer people that actually come keeps your cost down. The other thing is if you do a client event and ask them to bring a friend. Now you're increasing your database. That's lead generation.
yeah, that would be different than what I'm thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
I just invite my clients.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you said to your friend, hey, listen, we'd love to work with people like you, bring a friend. We'd love to meet your friends. If you did a welcome party for someone when they move into their house and they invite their friends, that's how you get into their sphere. Send me your guest list, we'll put it together. And now you've just met, 15 of their friends. All right, administrative. You got the breakdown of what goes in there. Occupancy, other operating expenses. And then you've got total cost of sales is 104, total lead gen 68.1, your administrative is 5,300, occupancy 16.2, and other operating expenses 60,400. So your total expenses are 299. So total revenue of 414,740 minus expenses, net profit is 115,40. Does yours have the profit metrics on the bottom? It does, okay. All right, so profit margin is 27.9, so based on what we talked about, where should your profit be? 40%. So they're a little light on profit. They were over on lead gen, so if you shifted the extra 16.4 up to the profit margin, because you cut that. The administrative, where should that be? Well, it's part of the operating expenses. I left my cheat sheet off. I believe it's supposed to be, I think it's 13 or 14. It's slightly under, yeah. Yeah, it's slightly under. And then cost of goods sold at 25.1, 30 is the cost of goods sold number. So this gives you an idea of what a P&L would look like. The reason I wanted to give you one that wasn't perfect was because most businesses are not perfect. But it's a constant review. So in the market center side, 60% of our company dollar is what we can spend on expenses. So in the last year, we've been running higher than 60%. And a couple of reasons for that. One, our company dollar has dropped. And secondly, we have a business center in Canton, and that skews the numbers. So we had to come up with a new metric that allowed us to, because the Canton Business Center is profitable and it contributes, so it's just the way it's logged on the sheet that raises our expense as a percentage of. Correct. So they have an $8,000 budget every month that they pay, and then anything over that, the market center splits with them the profit. The market center splits 50-50. But if they spend $10,000, they pay the other two. So they're capped. They set a budget and they have to stick to the budget, right? And then we split profit 50-50. So the market center is because they're profitable, we're splitting 50-50, but it skews the numbers. So I tell you that story, a couple of reasons. One, so you can kind of understand our model, because our model is completely transparent. And secondly, because sometimes you have to make adjustments to your ratios based on a specific situation that you have. Yes?
So I have a situation with someone I pay two different ways.
Okay.
They're licensed, so if they work on a listing with me, instead of paying them by the hour for the admin work that they do on that listing, they get 20% of the transaction.
Okay.
If they don't,
And they don't get it if it doesn't close.
and they don't get it if it doesn't.
Okay. So cost of goods sold.
Right, so, but if they don't get the 20%, then they keep track of their hours, and I pay them the hourly fee
Okay.
for that, whether it closes or not. I mean,
So that would be under admin.
that's under admin, truly admin. So,
Correct. Because it wasn't directly related to the closing of a transaction.
So, I forget what my question was now. So, I don't know how to categorize that. I mean, how,
So if you pay a percentage, it would go in cost of goods sold under listing commission or buyer commission, whichever side it was on. And then if you pay them an hourly rate, even if it's $10.99, that would go under admin.
okay.
So the answer is it will depend. It will depend on how you pay them, but it'll be in one of those two categories. All right, now who has the other case study? Okay. I've got so many pieces of paper up here that it'll be like no telling where we're going next. Do you have one, Mike?
No, he doesn't.
Oh, sorry.
If you need the extra one.
Paper cut on your ear there. Okay. Everybody else has it? Okay. Oh. Hold on a second.
What went where. Probably the best thing to do would be to go through and write down every expense that you had for the month.
We should have. Does anybody have more than one? Well, I don't think she had that one. Let's see. Yeah, let me make sure this is the. I can give somebody this one if I just want to make sure that. Are you the only one that needs one? Okay. Here, I think this is the same thing. It's just not stapled. Like I said, I have so many pieces of paper up here. Goodness knows. Okay, so I want you to work at your table. Okay, and looking at this same GCI, different expenses than the previous one. And I want you to identify anything that may be like, that's odd on a P&L, right? And also looking at, I want you to calculate the ratios. Actually, it may, nope, they're not on there. So, here's your little worksheet. Ah! How to fill what out? Okay. Yes. We're getting there, Ursula. We're getting there. Whoops. Okay.
The listing income on this example is your listings itself, and the sales income is your buyers.
Is anybody's eyes crossing? Do you want to do it together? Okay. So there are two errors on the P&L. Let's nail those first. As you scan through, look under the cost of goods sold. Tell me what you see that jumps out at you. Mm-hmm. Page 1. Cost of sales. Cost of sales, sorry. Okay, good job, Brandy. So the other cost of sales is a credit item. So there should be no credit item. So it was booked as an expense in an income, or an income as in a expense category. So if you see a negative, you need to always ask questions about that. It would go into operating expenses, or, well, it was a credit. So it would go into income of some sort. It was some type of income. We don't know. It was probably just a miscalculation or a part of what I do when I work with Susan at the end of the month is I'm reviewing the financials, and I do a quick scan for anything that jumps out at me. So in your expenses, you should never have a credit, because that would be income. You've booked income somewhere along there. So if you have credit, a credit item, and so the cost of goods sold, the cost of sales, is an expense category. So the fact that you have a credit means that income was booked in that category. Okay, then flip over and look in your lead gen and conversion under prospecting and marketing. And tell me which one of those items is miscategorized. Which one belongs in another category? Or not necessarily in another category, but is a bloat area. Well, it's market. You're prospecting and marketing. So not necessarily that it's in the wrong category. It just maybe is a little. It's like a catch-all. That would be like a dialer or something like that. Say that again, Ian. Which one? Because it's specifically used in prospecting. For prospecting. So it's prospecting and marketing as a category? Yeah. What about meals, gifts, and entertainment? Does that seem a little vague? So $3,600 for meals, gifts, and entertainment. Potential to look there to see what the breakdown is, right? So as you're looking at it, you want to look at your books. You're going to have to wear two hats. You're the agent that spent the money, and then you're also going to have to look at it as the operating partner, as the CEO that says, give me the details around this. Is it in the right spot? Are we in the ratios? Well, taxes that we're talking about are like income tax. So any sales tax you pay would be factored into this. So I had an opportunity to work with another market center in the Southeast region a couple of years ago that their MCA absconded with some money, and like a lot of money. They got $500,000 in money. And so I had an opportunity to go in as the operating partner and go through the books, right? So back to nerd status earlier, like I was like, yes, this is awesome, right? So peeling back through the accounts and putting the puzzle back together. And so if someone else is doing your books for you, you need to even look, well, not more carefully, because, you know, I do my books and I catch my mistakes all the time. But if someone else is doing your books for you, you need to really look at what they're doing. My suggestion would be never let anyone else have access to your bank account. So a lot of companies will ask for which in my opinion is not wise on their part either, but they'll ask you for a link to your bank account so they can download statements and stuff. If they have access to transfer money, that is not a good idea. The person writing the check should never sign the check unless it's your money, right? If someone's working with you, for example, in the market center, right? Susan writes all the checks and someone else signs the checks. Checks and balances, right? And it's not just from a standpoint of somebody Listen, the person there that took all the money had been there 9 years. Everybody loved her. That was the consistent thing, was everybody loved her. Well, she had been doing it for 7 years. So it was a little less than all of a sudden. Took 7 years for it to come to a head. Yeah. She was pretty much just stealing. She didn't even, at the end, she didn't even get into skimming. She just took it. Yeah, she was taking, chunks. She is in jail now. Yeah, she finally, yeah. It ended up being a GBI event because of, she did it online, so it was, what do they call it? Interstate, whatever. It becomes a federal, much bigger crime if you take money online. That's the other thing. If you're going to steal money, don't do it online. So in looking at this, where did the money go, right? The profit margin on this business was 26.7%. Are there any areas that you looked at and just said, oh yeah, there's the money? As you figured your percentages. Marketing? So what is the percentage for prospecting and marketing? 68.1 divided into the GCI, which is 415, 740. What percentage is it? We'll have a follow-up class when you guys get your P&Ls done, and we'll have anonymous P&Ls, and then we'll swap them. We do this on the we do this on the market center side all the time. Everybody brings a P&L. Nobody knows whose P&L is what, and then you pass them around because other people will see in your P&L what you don't. Yep. So the first thing is to use your cheat sheet that I gave you. The cheat sheet that was the individual page. That. Okay? So yes. So when you're reviewing your own, can I borrow this for a second? When you're reviewing your own P&L, you're going to want to use this to go through, and this is your key items. I would say take this and take this P&L and run through it and go back and see where you see your opportunities when you have some time to really get your head into it. So the opportunity gap in this particular scenario, the current profit was $110,640, right? If they were at a 40% profit, it would be $165. So the opportunity just by getting the expenses in line is an additional $55,000 in profit. How many more houses do you have to sell in this scenario to increase your bottom line by $55,000? Zero, right? This is the same money you made. This is where your profit should be. This is where your profit is. So you're overspending by $55,000. So if you get your expenses in line, you don't sell one more house. You just reconstruct your business and hold it accountable, and you already have an additional $55,000. Does that sound good to anybody? And that would be preferential. Yes. Everybody hear what he said? You could just correct it and sell more houses. Yes. That is correct. And most people don't even realize that they're overspending because they aren't tracking. So if you, that is correct. Yep. That is correct.
Stuff in the pipeline with several $100,000, lot of income coming in, not now, but in the future, but you have no income yet. If you're doing a P&L, you would have zero income, and you would have a bunch of expenses, but those expenses are related to that profit that you're gonna be getting. How do you deal with that?
Did everybody hear a question? So you have zero income now. You have a bunch of stuff in the pipeline, but you have expenses to generate what's coming, right? So Sean started in January, right? When you start, are there expenses? Did you have to write checks before you have any income? Yeah. Board dues, super key, and then you took a listing. And then are there expenses with the listing? Yes. Pictures, signs, marketing, right? So you have to capitalize your business when you start. So when people come in the door, we say we recommend 6 months of expenses before you start so that you can move forward. As you move forward in your business, every time when you have your year in profit, 30% of the profit you made should stay in the business as the capitalization and the fuel and the funding. So when you start, you're going to put your own money in, but then once the business gets rolling, the business should be self-sustaining. So back to the market center as an example, right? Keller Williams requires 3 months of operating expenses in a reserve account at all times. It's a default of your franchise if you don't have that. So our expenses in the market center run about $150,000, $160,000 a month. We have to have that times 3 in a reserve account so that if nobody had a closing for 3 months, we would still be fully funded. Your business should be the same way. What is the likelihood you may go 3 months without a closing versus the market center goes 3 months without anybody closing, right? It's more likely, right? So in your business, instead of 3 months, I might do four months, right? Sometimes, Candace, you can testify, right? Sometimes a medical emergency happens, and you don't know you're going to be out, although she kept rolling anyway. She didn't care. But things happen, right? People have accidents. People have a family member sick, whatever, and you may need to step away from your business at some point. So having those reserves. So I hope that answered your question on how, and I think this is one of the profit leaks, is you have a whole bunch of business in your pipeline coming in, so people are like, oh, well, I'm going to spend this because this is coming. What do we know about pipeline? It's coming, but it might not get there. So that is correct. So I'm going to use a 4-letter word. Even if they're under contract, there's no guarantee that you're going to get the money. That is correct. That is correct. So I'm going to use a 4-letter word that has 6 letters. Budget. So twice a year you should be doing. Yeah. I could have dropped the F-bomb and made any happier. He's like, budget. What? Yeah. So twice a year you should be doing your budget, right? Yes, I know, how exciting. And your budget is, you're going to look at your previous year. So those of you who have been around for a while, you have a distinct advantage because you have some history. If you're not tracking, you have no advantage and no history, right? Because you have no idea what you spent last year. It's going to take you longer to do it. So again, Market Center, we do a budget. We turn it in November, and that is for 2026. In July, we revise the budget. Why do you do a budget revision? Things change. The market could shift. We could explode an agent account and say, hey, we need to hire a new person. We need to, or the market has contracted and we need one less person, right? So, yeah, it's not one and done. It's a moving target all the time. But and here's the other magic words: if it's not in the budget, you cannot spend it. So when you turn in the budget for 2026 and you didn't budget to do some great event or wonderful idea that popped into your head, you would want to wait and do it after your mid-year revision or cut something else. You have to stay in those budget parameters. Correct. Undercapitalized. That is 100% true. Yep. Because, by the way, your income comes out of that 40%. You're not a salary cost, you're a 40%. There are some exceptions to that, and we'll hire that. Ursula put together a great Excel spreadsheet for those. How many people use like QuickBooks, Quicken, some type of something? Okay, perfect. Okay, so you may have something that we would like you to share with the group also.
I have a chart of accounts and I just put everything in their categories.
That's perfect. So by Ursula providing this for us, I really mean Dave put it together for us. It's leverage at its best, right? And so it's a Excel spreadsheet with the chart of accounts down the left-hand side, the months of the year across the top, right? If you're going to, because the finance committee wanted you to have something simple to start with. So if you're going to do that, what you'll need to do is consolidate all of your expenses for each category and then plug it in. So you would have one sheet, and at the end of each month, you would put in the numbers for that particular month. And then here's the best part. You send that to your CPA, and you're good to go. So if you're using QuickBooks or Quicken, you're going to enter your expenses in real time. It's going to create a P&L for you, and you just click Reports. And I recommend year-over-year comparison because you'll look really quickly and find any entry errors or accelerated spending or underspending because you're comparing it to the previous year. How many people love bookkeeping?
I hate it.
Yeah, so I love it once I start because it's a puzzle, but yeah, Sean and Alan will tell you that like the joke at our house is Sean will call and go, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, taxes, because it's a everyday event to do multiple businesses and keep it in there. And so it's like all the time. And Alan's like, why don't we hire somebody to do this? Because by the time I get all my stuff together to send it to them, I've done it. Because if you're doing it every day, right, you stay on top of it. The key is to do it every day. Don't email them that one because I changed it to the MREA chart of accounts, right? So yes, let Brandy know if you want it and we'll send it out. So the finance committee wanted you to have something very simple that you could start with, right? And then you can move from there to do it, but it gives you something to get started with and start tracking. Just give Brandy, let Brandy know, and she'll send it out.
If we have everything from last year, and our spreadsheet with all the stuff in it that we use for, this was what, 2024? Yeah, I haven't done 2025.
Okay.
I have a tendency to sit and do it, we do it month by month,
Yeah.
at one time,
Okay.
after the year's over.
What would it look like if you did it month by month in the month?
A lot better.
Yeah.
A lot better, because it's a pain in the neck.
I start out well, and then at the end of the year, that's
And then and every year we say, okay, we need to just do January, February, but we know it.
Yeah.
So now here we are, having to do 2025
Okay.
all at once, so I don't know what numbers.
Hang on a second. Y'all stay with us over here.
I don't know whether to use the 2024 numbers that I have, or just do my 2025 numbers.
Shh. I would use your 2024 numbers, then do your 2025 and then tweak them. So you may do a budget revision in May instead of July. But I would do something to get started.
Yeah, because I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. And then if we made a pact, and myself included, because I'm not, myself included, if we made a pact to say at the end of every month, we're going to close out our books. We're going to close out our books like the Market Center closes out their books. We're going to make sure at the end of the month, like, I think I started to say this earlier, and I don't know that I completed my sentence, but on the first business day of the month, I keep my schedule clear because I know that that's transmittal day. And I am available to review financials whenever Susan's ready for me to transfer money as I need to look at reports, to do all of the things. That's my day, and I block it on my calendar. So what would my life look like if I blocked a day to close out the books of the other companies that I own? What would your life look like if you were really intentional and blocked those time frames and knew your business moving forward? So any questions before we wrap up? Yeah, like a real business. I download like every day, every couple of days, I download my credit card receipts into QuickBooks. So any questions anybody has? So we'll do a second class for people who have, who put their P&Ls together, and then we'll take a look at your actual P&L. Whatever you guys want to do. When you start doing this, I promise you'll have questions. Feel free to text me your questions as you go, and then we'll come back. Ursula, what did I not hit that I needed to hit based on the vision of the Finance Committee?
How to fill the thing out.
Oh, I thought I did that. So if you're looking at that, you're going to take all of your expenses for each particular category at the end of each month and put them in put them in that box. Is that? Yeah. So it's, yeah, so she gave you an Excel one that has all the numbers all the way across the top as well. But no, so using the one that you sent me, right? So it has January, February, March, all the way across. So at the end of March, you would add up all of your whatever and put it in that box. Put it in the little space next to it. Just one entry. Whereas you use Quicken, right? So every time you have an expense, you put it in Quicken, Quicken adds it up for you. Yeah. If they're using an Excel spreadsheet, they're going to have to add it themselves. Well, but you can't enter 6 things under one category. You're going to have to add everything and put it in the category.
I would figure, how much did I spend in January for marketing? I put that
Correct.
in marketing, then February for marketing.
Yes.
Put that in, yeah.
Yes. That's exactly how you would do it. So if you have 8 items for marketing in January, you would have to add them up and put them in there. And on her spreadsheet, she has she has it broken down like lockbox, sign, whatever. So if you bought 3 lockboxes at 3 different times in January, you would have to add those 3 receipts together and put it by lockbox, and then it'll roll up to marketing, so you can have more detail around it. Does that answer the question on how you fill it out?
Yep.
Okay.
I thought we were filling this one out.
Oh, that's the chart of account.
That was like, where you put numbers?
Yeah, no, that's the chart of account, and that has the sheet that you have has explanations of what different things go in each category based on Gary's model. By the way, if you go to Keller Inc., I-N-K, there are all Gary's books, and if you click on a specific book and you scroll to the bottom on the right-hand side, there are all kinds of downloads that are available with that book. So with the MREA book, there's the chart of accounts is available in an Excel spreadsheet. There's 166 tasks of a real estate agent, 162 tasks of a real estate agent. There's all kinds of supplemental pieces that go with each single book that you can download. So Keller Inc., I-N-K. Nope, just kellerinc.com. Yeah, yeah. So anything else that you came expecting that we did not cover? So everybody got either exactly what they want or you're so brain dead you don't even know.
No, I think this was very helpful. I don't
Okay.
know how I will do it yet, but I will figure it out.
Okay. Okay.
I'll have more questions.
Okay. Well, text me if you do. Here's a CEO scorecard for as you analyze your business. The other one is more detailed, but this is just a quick high-level view that you would be able to look at for your key numbers. And then what would your action items be? I promise in the future I'll give you less paper and more like I'll get fancy and do a QR code or something. No. I like paper. Like to kill all the trees. There you go. No, pass. It's the same thing. Pass. So, okay.
So the total GCI
Thank you.
is different than the amount you get on your 1099, so what's the difference?
Minus cost of goods sold. So total GCI. So look, just think about Chris, right? So this is all the GCI that comes in. Then she shares commission with team members. For you, you get your GCI and then you pay your cap and royalty. That would be cost of goods sold.
So it's only
And
what I pay KW.
correct. And FMLS. So in reality, right,